Doug, good morning.
Is your disclaimer built on a city or based on a city that I like to visit? Or is it based on a city that you recently visited?
It's what do you want it to be? Buongiorno. How about that?
Okay, well, I was thinking the city that I like to visit has had some water problems recently, and that would be New York City.
Oh, I forgot all about that. Yeah, they did have some water problems. I think a lot of cities have water problems. You know, if you're built on a coast, that's just the nature of living on a coast. I don't want to be politically in my, well, I will be. I don't know about this whole climate change idea. I just know hurricanes, tidal waves, all those things never happen in Indiana.
We did have the ice ages in Indiana, so we had some of that.
Yeah, yeah. You had time to get away from it though. Yeah. Venice is built on 118 islands.
Okay.
And high tide, they have these little risers they put up when the moon shifts, I guess. And so you can walk through some of these alleys on these risers when the tide changes, and you have a high tide that's higher than the city. And
High tide that's higher than the city.
yeah,
Okay.
which is not like I don't know. I mean, I didn't ask any questions because
Sounds like a reservoir.
My brain was just like, and like somebody told me they saw videos, people would be sitting in restaurants in Venice with their feet wet, like sitting.
Okay.
And so a friend asked me after I got back, do you suppose they have mold problems in Venice? I'm like, I don't know how they wouldn't.
Yeah,
like
dehumidifier sales must be awesome.
something is like, what in the world? So yeah.
What was the name of the place out east that you visited? You sent me a picture years ago of a tide, like out in Maine or something like that.
Oh yeah.
No, that was in Canada.
Yeah, it's up in Nova Scotia. My brain it'll take my brain a minute.
Well, that was that.
Yeah, the tide
place is,
rises and falls 50 feet a day.
Yeah,
Twice. It
Pretty
does
cool.
that twice a day. Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. Well, be safe out there. That's the main takeaway. There is risk everywhere.
You didn't miss much in the marketplace while you were gone. That's kind of nice. Didn't have to think about that too much.
It's weird that this is your hobby, you know?
It is.
Yeah, because
I love it.
It's like I kind of kept my eye on it, and
Yeah.
I didn't feel like a workaholic. I just knew what was going on, and that's just a one of those things in life that if you can do something you like, then you're in a good place.
And if you can do it when it's not so great,
Yeah.
if you can still stay objective, I think staying objective, especially during market sell-offs, is really important.
Yeah, I was telling Doug a while ago that somebody called me last night while I was grilling, and Connie, when I came in, told me, "Hey, you had a call," and so I went and looked at my phone and saw who called, and I called them back, and I got on my phone, and I'm like, "Why are you calling me at dinner time?" And it was one of the guys I broke into the business with, and that was a common day of work for us, that people would say, "Quit calling me at dinner time," and all these other kind of things. And he's several years ahead of me and has retired, you know, after I think in his mid-70s. And so we had a good conversation. I didn't even remind him that yesterday was 36 years since the 1987 crash. And
I can't imagine what that was like for you as a new broker, and just wondering, is this it? Is this it for the stock market? I mean, there would have been a flood of thoughts coming at you.
It was really interesting that I thought this was what I was supposed to do. Like I walked away from a nice job to get into this at probably 50 cents on the dollar. I left Texas to come to Indiana, and I thought, sure, this is what I was supposed to do. And the whole thing was cold calling people at dinner time, like getting people to yell at you until you got enough people to say, "Well, I'll talk to you." And it was just a hard thing to do. And then after having done that for many months, and basically the only thing they were comparing that day to was 1929. So, like, if you're not a market buff and history like us, like 1929 was a great crash, and we went into a Great Depression for more than a decade after that. And here I am, my first day. The next day was my first day of straight commission, and that's the only thing they're comparing it to. And so, here's a 25-year-old man walked away from a wonderful career opportunity with a salary and everything. Now I'm on straight commission and had no idea what the days ahead had. And so it was when I was reflecting on it yesterday, I just remember looking in the mirror and saying, God, if you want me in this business, you're going to have to make it happen, because there's no other way I'm going to make it.
I can relate. September 11th was mine. I was 3 years into business. On September 11th, I'd had a good month of commissions in July, and roll into September. And I was cold call cowboy like Keith. That's the only way. And boy, September 11th, when the markets closed for a few days, and then I felt guilty for talking about money for months.
Right.
But what we know now is the market is resilient, and it's resilient because it's chock full of people who are resilient and ideas that rise to the top. Those ideas are the future. You can't stop it.
Yeah. So this trip that Connie and I took to Italy, we finished in Venice, and I don't know if you guys know anything about Venice. I didn't know anything about Venice. I just knew it was like they go through the canals, blah blah blah. Evidently, and I didn't catch the group of people that got there first, that it was mud islands, and they got millions and millions of tree trunks from Croatia, which today is a 4-hour boat ride away, and they brought these tree trunks to these mud islands, and the people sorted them out when they got them, and they would drive them down into the mud as pylons to build all these buildings on. So they're built on several 100-year-old. All those buildings you see in Venice, their foundation are these logs that came from Croatia.
What an idea.
And it's no different than the internet. It's no different from any of the technologies. Somebody had an idea that turned these mud piles into a thriving city today.
I bet the Croatian ETF index fund was blowing up with excitement back then.
My brain, the way it works is like, what did Croatia look like after they lost all these millions of trees? Like,
we'd have to ask Amanda.
Yeah, some tree salesman over in Croatia is just load them up, boys, and like there were cranes. So
I mean, think about the boat guy.
Right.
You had some ships.
There was my trip to Italy just made me mad at my high school teachers who couldn't teach history in an interesting way. Like, how interesting is that dynamic alone in history? Like, these people in Croatia have probably never been to Italy, and they're shipping all their trees over there, and somebody's getting fat and rich. And
I'm glad you went. We wouldn't have this lesson today had you not gone.
Yeah, I'm glad I went too. I learned a lot. I saw a lot of people.
The thing that I'm most glad that you went is you said yes to something different.
Yes, it was outside of anything I would have ordinarily said yes to.
It's really cool.
What I said yes to was 32 years ago was Connie.
That's right.
And the kids said, Mom wants to go to Italy. And so I want to hang out with her. And so we made the journey over there. Yeah.
That's cool.
And I did it the way I did it. I just roamed around aimlessly and enjoyed meeting people and experiences and things. I didn't do what most people do in Italy. I was looking for the things that most people don't see. And so,
this show's not possible without you guys, our clients, and our clients have done some interesting things too. It's inspiring to hear what you've done. I know some of those things are in your rear view mirror now, and you don't want to like live on the past, but those things that you have done are really inspiring to us, and helps us make better decisions. Look forward.
And if you flew a MiG, you are bad to the bone, is all I can say.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what to say, do you?
No, but that is.
Thank you.
That is.
You inspire both of us.
That's probably the top Gimbal story ever.
Yeah, that made just even thinking about that makes my day. Like I'm gonna have a skip on my step the rest
Yeah,
of the day. Thank
for
you.
real, for real.
Yeah. Hmm. What do you want to talk about, Doug? I've rambled on.
Okay, well, some of you may not want to talk about the stock market, but I wake up looking forward to digesting the market in the morning. I normally head to a coffee shop. Yep, that was a bird, Keith. I saw it. I go to a coffee shop and I love to look at the stock market. And can I share with you what I'm seeing? And this um, basically, let's just go over it. If you look to the right, we are in a sell-off. We're giving up some steam, and we've been giving up some steam really since this summer. Boy, your July statements would have looked pretty good. They would have looked pretty good. And we've been selling pretty much since that time. However, what I see is we're in a range right now. And if you want to hover over even a couple of those lows, Keith, like in the NASDAQ, that would have been around August. And then the next one, yes, that would have been the end of September. And if we push through those lows and make another low, yeah, exactly. That could be tough. If we crack the 200-day, that could be tough. But this is kind of a pivot point where it could turn around and go the opposite way. And so I think it's a real interesting time in the market for 2023. We've seen a lot of choppiness, and investors tend to like choppiness because there's room for money to be made. And when the markets are heading south, right now, where we are in October of 2023, the cash is paying interest. And that's been really encouraging to me for our clients. And I know our competition would say, oh my gosh, why are you in that? Don't you know that markets always go up? Okay. But to have something pay interest, something safer to pay interest during these times is really great. So I'm not that anxious about the market right now. I'm looking forward to opportunity with the understanding that, hey, it could storm more, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity because of what we talked about earlier. There's always some innovator out there doing something that's better than the rest. And that's the future.
Right. And the markets are really interesting. It had a good rally at the beginning of the year, but here we are with the NASDAQ. We are the same place we were 12 months ago.
That's right.
Well, more than 12, 14 months ago.
Obviously.
Yeah. So that could, it just could create a lot of questions for people. We're near the October anniversary of the crash of '87. October, people like to, in the news, like to embellish how bad October month is. And yeah, if you look where we were a year ago, which I was typing in there, we were coming off of the highs of 21 over here, and then we dropped through the 200-day, this black line right here, with pretty big level of confidence. And then we spent the next year trying to get back to that 200-day moving average. It bounced off of it. And then if I go back to today, so that's the follow through day there, to kind of see where we're. So that's where that one went. And so we rallied up to this 200-day moving average in January, and we had a good run. And now we're trying to decide, the market's trying to decide, is this 200-day going to be a springboard, or is it going to be, hey, you might want to get more money in cash? And those are the kind of decisions we'll have to talk about as this thing unfolds. It's probably an industry term is called oversold. Oversold means that there's just been too much selling going on, and at some point the buyers are going to say this is a bargain, and so that may, in my gut feeling, it may happen at the same level that it bottomed out here a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
which ironically those things may correlate right with the 200-day moving average. So that's the NASDAQ. Let me show you one other thing. What we would like to see is the rally, the decline, the rally, the decline, the rally, the decline, and we'd like to just see the rally and decline and then just kind of go sideways. That would be a perfect world for us, I think.
Yeah, and when we look at these charts, what are we measuring? I know we're talking about price up at the top dollars. We're talking about volume down below where Keith's highlighting. That all of this is humanness.
Yeah.
It's someone wanting more, maybe being greedy.
Yep.
It's someone who's complacent, not doing a thing. Maybe they're fearful or afraid of the future. And there's plenty of reasons to support either one of those options, especially with world news right now. But we're being driven, we're monitoring what is the stock market telling us?
Yeah.
And so sometimes it just tells us to chill. And that's where we're at. That's what we're looking for is, hey, what is going to cause this market to move one way or the other? And the volume will tell us that every day.
Yeah, and these charts, they may look foreign to a lot of you. It's something that we have a hobby about. But like, if you think about emotional responses you have to life, those emotional responses can be opposite of what they need to be from time to time. And so what Doug and I are looking to do is to take some of the emotions out of the decision grid, so that the emotions aren't what's driving us. It's just the responses that the world is showing. And so, for example, probably the safest time to travel to New York City, maybe in our lifetimes, was November the 12th.
September the 12th.
Or September the 12th, 2011, or 2001, which seems counterintuitive. I don't know if that's true with Israel right now, but it may be a really safe time to travel in Israel. I'm not buying a ticket, but when we were in Venice, we were on a boat ride and we came under one of the bridges, and there was one of those Camping World size flags of Palestine hanging down. And when I saw that, my emotions kind of spiked for a moment, thinking about the safety of my wife and those with me. And then later on that evening, I walked by probably 300 or 400 protesters with, Palestinian flags, and all of that can make you do emotional things that aren't the wisest things to do. And so, how do you captivate your emotions in the midst of times that you need to think clearly? And that's kind of what we're trying to do on you guys' behalf.
There's really nothing else to look at on there.
I'll show one other.
I mean, they kind of all look the same. Now we could look at the VIX.
That's the one I was going to pull up.
We've been talking about the VIX. I know a few weeks ago we talked about it maybe moving up to that 25, 26 level, and it might be headed that way.
This thing gets obstinate. You see, it goes away as soon as I have to be able to multitask. There we go. All right, I got it for you, friends. The VIX is just a measure of volatility, and we had been bragging about how it had been trading below 20, and that's usually a healthy place. Our friend Mark Minervini thought that this thing needed to go from this 15 level up to here, have some volatility to really hit the bottom of this market, and it's gone up probably 33% since I was out of town. It went from that 15 level up over 20. And so the volatility is picking up. It's like throwing a rock in the bathtub. It's going to create some waves. And that's what this measure shows us.
One of the things about the investment community or the financial planning services community is at some point in time, a voice is going to be right. and so if you are a fan of AM radio, I get your calls. I hear you call me, you email me this. But if you're a fan of AM radio or you watch cable news networks, my guess is you're going to be hearing from the commodities people, the gold people, the maybe your Bitcoin friends. And it's interesting because during times like this, those types of investments or resources do tend to react positively. And so that's been happening. And I think with the commodities side, when there's fear in the world and fear economically or with war or whatever it is, there's always some person who's going to say, see, we were right, because they've been talking about it forever. And at some point in time, whatever you listen to, you just need to decide, hey, do I need that as part of my game plan or not? And those are discussions that I would love to have with you and talk about with you, whether those commodities are an investment or whether they're Armageddon protection. I don't know what they are for you, but I'd be happy to address those one-on-one.
That's true. Like the idea that a broken clock's correct twice a day, and somebody that hypes things. My whole career I've been around people like that, and I didn't understand it all early on back in those 1987 days. But there is a niche of people that just spark the same message, and they can get the right time, the right space, and just cycle through people. The gold bug that was in my office in those days, he was a gold bug, so he was hyping the world's coming to an end all the time. And then we had these pages that we had to record our trades on, and those pages had the name and phone number of people and all the stock trades that they'd done. And the more of those pages you had in a 3-ring binder, generally the more successful you were because you had more clients. And this particular guy, every once in a while would do me a favor, and he would bring me 20 of those pages as my client. He would give those clients to me.
Okay.
And so I would dial and smile. And the person on the other end goes, I hate that guy. He's done nothing but lose money for me. And so I would put that card in the shredder, and I'd call the next one. And after about 2 times of bringing me pages, I said, I'm good too.
I wonder why he gave me those cards.
Yes. And so he constantly had to get new clients because he burned out all those old ones. And the marketing of that stuff on TV is the same as those pages, only nobody gets the pages at the end. Those people just disappear, and that person keeps running commercials. So
can I share an experiment that I am in?
Let's hear
it. And so there was some news on this experiment this week that hey, got me excited about it. And I don't know when I did this. I'd have to look back and see, but I put $100 down on a Cybertruck. And so there's this like sign up sheet where you could go on to Tesla and you could reserve a Cybertruck for $100 through Apple Pay or something like that. And so my kids thought that was cool, and I got this for Christmas a couple years ago, my own Cybertruck. But I have really no intentions on buying a Cybertruck. Sorry, Elon, but who knows? I just wanted to be part of the adventure without actually shelling out for one. So I'm on this list. And it's an experiment because I can't wait to see what happens with this thing. If I would have gone back into the 1980s and drawn a pickup truck of 2023, where I thought we would have been living on Mars by now, this is what it would have looked like.
Looks kind of like a DeLorean, doesn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's I think it's so futuristic. Now, some of you people you might hate this thing. I don't know. But I signed up for this experiment because I wanted to be part of the ride. And they announced the other day that this thing is coming out in November, maybe. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know. But it's getting closer, and you might see one of these on the street. Now, I have no idea what these things would go for. Like a Rivian, I think is about 75 grand for a electric cool pickup truck. The Ford is 50 to 90, depending on if you want cooled seats or not. But what is this thing going to be priced at? When I signed up for the list, the cheap version, the two-wheel drive, single, is it a motor? I forget which one's electric. I think it's a motor. 35 grand. The souped up one, or the middle package, was like 42, and then the real fast one was 48.
Wow.
I'm guessing it's going to be double that.
I was going to say
maybe
inflation has come to the equation since then.
Yeah. And so, hey, stay tuned. I'm really interested to see what happens. Elon said that here yesterday or the day before that Tesla, they probably dug their own grave making this, because it's been so complex. that gives you appreciation for innovation and inventors and taking risks. But it will be interesting to see what this thing does to their company.
Isn't that an interesting comment from a guy that built spaceships?
Yeah, and who lands spaceships,
Right.
that a pickup truck could be his most challenging. He didn't say that, but could be one of his most challenging things to produce.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. So stay tuned. Look out for the Cybertrucks.
What else you got going on in your mind today?
We got a couple minutes left. You
Let me throw a teaser out there for next week, because I think if you were to package all the anchors that have been written over the years, it'd be a pretty thick book.
Yeah.
It would be a big book, a lot of different topics. And I started a series 2 months ago on kind of economic, financial ideas that I gathered over time of my life. So I'm going to present different economic ideas that I learned at different times. Like 12 years old, I was a paper boy, and what being a paper boy taught me, right? Like, and so different principles, but the start of it, the first kind of the prequel to it was the last 2 months articles about the childhood and lifetime of my grandparents in the 1900s. And then my parents were born in the 1930s during the Great Depression, in their lifetime, and the mindsets of those folks and how that filters into my own personal financial thought process. That's kind of the essence of what it was. And in other words, the idea is to present to you all the idea that financial planning advice cannot be cookie cutter, because it's like what we've been talking about, the emotions, that different families have different histories. Those ideas are presented by experience, by word, by failures, by successes in the minds of people, and they may not even really know what they have, that it's limiting or opening possibilities for the finance. That's the idea of what I threw out there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so stay tuned. You've got a newsletter coming out that will talk a little bit about that. But yeah, next week we can dive in.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas that really intrigue me about it, and I keep making a list of ones that are really funny. But the newspaper story alone, like no kid today delivers newspapers.
Yeah, they can't connect with that. Now they might say, well, that reminds me of.
Yeah, Caleb had an eBay business, right?
Yeah.
So that was his newspaper business as a 12-year-old. But all of those ideas, the hope was that it can maybe even help us as generations communicate better, because I could be critical towards my kids because they didn't have paper routes. Like look at those kids in there on their sofa. Well, he's on their sofa selling something, right? Like a car. He sold a bunch of cars like that. And so the world changes, but the perceptions that we carry along may limit us or open possibilities. And let's just talk about that.
Sounds cool.
Thanks for hanging out today, and thanks for flying a MiG. That's really cool.
Bye.